2 a.m. and she calls me 'cause I'm still awake. Can you help me unravel my latest mistake? Dropped a stitch about 17 rows behind me. There's no way I can pick it up from where I am. This is so frustrating.
Hello, and welcome to the 15th episode of the Sittin and Knittin podcast. I am your host, Dianna. I can also be found on Ravelry as His Handmaid. You can find me as His Handmaid on Plurk and on Instagram. You can find me as His Handmaid 1 on Twitter. Welcome to the podcast. Today is Thursday, April 18th, 2013, and I am coming to you from sunny Southwest Ohio, where it is about 65 degrees and it's really nice outside. Thank you for joining me. Please bear with me here at the beginning. Every time I podcast, I feel like I'm podcasting for the first time, so I kind of have to get my bearings, but I'm just going to go ahead and start with the show. First, I would like to remind everyone that there is a knit along going on with the podcast. It is called A Ray of Sugar and Spice Knit Along, and I kind of started the knit along in memory of my daughter, Araya Hope, who passed away in January 2011. So the knit along started on her birthday, which was March 13th, and it ends on Mother's Day, which is May 12th. So if you started a project between March 13th and May 12th, you may enter it into the knit along. And a ray of sugar and spice means that you have knit a project for a special girl in your life. We will have prizes for that. One of the prizes will be a small bag of your choice from Knitting's My Bag. She will let you go to her website and pick out the fabric that you want. And thank you, Lois, very much for that, for donating that. I really, really appreciate that. Another prize will be a up to $10 giftable pattern from Ravelry, and that will be donated by me. And I also have another special prize in mind, so I will keep you informed on that. We have 10 FOs in the thread so far in the finished object thread. They're really cute, and I appreciate seeing those, so continue to keep them coming. I also wanted to thank everyone who shares their finished objects with our podcast group on Ravelry. You know, when you go to your project page and you have your works in progress, or after you complete something, and on the side it says share it with the group. When you share it with our group, I appreciate that. I love going through your projects and seeing what you're doing. Sometimes I don't take a lot of time because Ravelry takes up so much of my time already that I don't go searching through my friends' stashes or projects and different things like that, like I would really like to. So thank you for sharing that. I'd like to thank everyone for their kind comments in the thread, for the chatter, for private messages, and just for the community that we share. I think that's about it for housekeeping. So we can go ahead and get started. First, we will talk about what is out of my hands. The first thing out of my hands is the Little Sister's Dress, and it is by Tora Broseth. And I kind of knit this. I had promised this dress to a friend who had a baby. The baby was born in November, and her baby shower was back in January, and I promised her to knit a dress for the baby. I don't have the date with me of when I finished this dress, but I finished it within the last 2 weeks since the last podcast. It is knit out of Quince & Company Finch in the Rosa Ragusa colorway. I knit it on size 2, US 2, which is 2.75 millimeter needles. I used about a skein and a half. I just guesstimate. I did not weigh my yarn. The wonderful ladies from the Yarniac podcast weigh their yarn religiously, and I think it's a wonderful system. I just don't do it because my scale is way up in the top of the cabinet, and I always take the battery out of it to save the battery. So I have to pull it down, take the back off, put the battery on, and then turn it over. I don't know. I just don't take the time to weigh my yarn. But if you go listen to, I believe it's the latest episode of the Yarniacs podcast, they tell the why they weigh their yarn and the benefits of weighing their yarn. And I want to weigh my yarn more, but anyway, I didn't. So I don't know how much of this I used. I used one skein and part of another skein. I really love the color. I really love the Quince & Company yarn. It does break a little easy. I think it's a 2-ply yarn. When I got to the bottom and I was binding off, and I can't remember what was going on, but I was tugging for some reason. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, I gave a little tug and I lost my bind off stitches. The thread broke, the yarn broke, and I'm not sure why that was, but I kind of posted on my project page that the yarn does break easily. So that would be the only thing. Maybe I'm not used to working with 100% merino with no nylon in it for a fingering weight yarn. This is their fingering weight. Oh, I see an end I didn't weave in. But I really, really like the Quince & Company yarn, and I really like knitting this project, and it is a cute and beautiful dress, and it is too small. I talked to her grandmother, and she just grew. I think this is supposed to be a 6-month size. From what I remember from my babies, this is probably a 3 to 6 month size, not a 6-month. But her grandmother said that she's outgrown 6 months and is in the 9 to 12. She was born in November, December, January, February, March, April. So she's 5 months, but she's a healthy little girl. So I don't know who this is going to. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. And I have to knit little Jeannie another project. And I probably won't knit her a dress. I will probably knit her a really nice sweater for the fall, maybe a hooded sweater or something. Her mom did like this color, so if Quince & Company has something out of a worsted weight in this color, I will probably knit her a sweater out of this color. But this is my first finished object. Just hang that up there. Okay. And my second finished object, I did the curly scarf. And this is a Lion brand free crochet pattern. And it is called the curly scarf. And it calls for worsted weight yarn. I wanted to do a scarf project. There is a drive at our church where they are making, the ruffly scarves, and they were just kind of putting them together for the missionaries' wives for a box of special things for when different missionaries come in. The missionaries get a donation or whatever, but the wives usually don't get a lot. So this is like a little special thing for the wives. So I really don't. Those ruffly scarves are very popular, so they wanted to have some made for the wives. I really don't like working with that yarn, and so I kind of wanted to make a ruffly scarf, and I thought it would be a good way to use up stash sock yarn that I have that I don't think I'll ever use. So I pulled out to Footsies, which is by Southwest Trading Company. That's a pretty good representation of the color. That's pretty good. And I had heard a lot about this. This is 50% superwash wool, 25% soy silk, and 22% cotton, and 2.5% chitin. I'm not sure what that is, but I've had this yarn in my stash for quite a few years, maybe 3 or 4 years. And I decided that I probably would not knit with it for socks just because I don't like the color anymore. I just didn't think I would use it for socks. So there's some 100% merino wool yarn that now that I know more, I won't knit for socks and things like that. I want to use up some Sakata type yarn that I probably won't knit up. I really don't like knitting socks out of the stretchy yarn, so I thought I would use that for the scarves. So I made the scarf out of this. It calls for this pattern. See how fluffy and pretty that is. It calls for worsted weight yarn, but a worsted weight scarf, even though I love the pretty ruffles, just seemed like it would be too big and bulky for an accessory scarf. If it was an outside scarf, that would be fine, but these type of scarves are really supposed to be accessory scarves, and so anyway, I wanted a ruffly scarf in sock weight yarn. Long story short. So I did cast this on foundation and crochet. Here's the finished object. I did not chain as long as they said, but it is plenty long enough. When I wrap it around myself once, I think it comes down to my waist. I'm trying to show you. So just wrapped once, it comes down to my waist. And you know, this is tying it up a little bit. So, and I'm a tall person, long-waisted, so it really is a long enough scarf the way it is. I did the way that the pattern was written, it's only 3 rows of crochet. After I did the way the pattern was written, and I have pictures I need to post, only this part of it was done, and it was not curly enough. So what I did was I did the pattern twice. If you know anything about crochet, I just went back to the foundation chain and I did the pattern again on the other side. So this is actually the pattern doubled. And I think it's roughly enough. But I want to say I really didn't enjoy working on this project. I just would have rather be knitting. I know how to crochet. I learned to crochet before I started knitting, but crocheting just doesn't give me the zen that knitting does. So I probably won't be doing a lot of crochet anymore unless I'm doing edgings and things like that. And I think I said this once before. Last summer, I did a couple small crochet projects for the A is Okay knit along that Nicole from the Positively Knitting podcast had in her group. And then I really didn't enjoy the crochet. But I always fall back on it because I know it and it's fast and I used to enjoy it, but I just don't enjoy it anymore. So I probably won't be doing this again. I do have a project on my project page. It's called the Potato Chip Scarf. And it makes a really nice ruffly scarf out of sock weight yarn. And I'll probably be doing those when I make more of these curly scarves. And I even like them for myself. I just never take the time to make it. With the potato chip scarf, I think there was a lot of, I don't know if there was wrapping and turning, but it wasn't a mindless knit. It was something that I felt like I never really got the hang of the pattern and I was always looking at the instructions. And so I wanted something that I could knit without a lot of concentration or work on, and that's why I chose this. But yeah, I think I had like up to 800 stitches maybe on here, and that's that. So that is the other thing out of my hands. So we will slide right into what's in my hands. I want to say I have not made a lot of progress. I have 2 pairs of socks on the needles. And I have worked both the pairs of the socks up to the heels. And I really haven't done any more progress on those socks in these 2 weeks. And I'm going to tell you why. Well, I had done, let me see if I can go ahead and pull it out. I don't have it right here. But with my stripy socks, both of those socks are worked up to the heel. And then I was doing Hermione's Everyday Sock, and I had the first sock worked to the heel. And when I talked to you last time, I had just finished the ribbing on the second sock. I only got about an inch done on that so far, so it's really nothing to show. Lately, I have had times where I need to knit and not be able to really concentrate on my knitting, but there's so much going on around me that, and I was going to try new heel techniques. I was going to do, I didn't know what heels I was going to do, and I don't want to repeat myself from last time, but I didn't know, excuse me just a second. Okay, I apologize for that. Um, so as I was saying, I was going to try new heels. I usually do a Fleagle heel with my socks, and I was watching Tina of the Knitting Blooms podcast, and she has an excellent tutorial on a short row heel that I really wanted to try. But I would need to concentrate on that, concentrate on the pattern, learning that new technique, even watching her video. So I couldn't move forward on my toe up stripy socks without taking time to do that. And I haven't really had the time to do that. And I was going to do that same heel on the Hermione's Everyday sock. So now I started doing the heel, and I'm using um, ChowGoo double pointed needles, and they just didn't seem pointy enough for me to be able to get into the yarn and do the wrap and turn. It just was not working out for me real well. And I love ChowGoos. I'm not sure if they're ChowGoo lace or if lace comes in double point, but they were just not pointy enough to make the wrapping and slipping the stitch really easy. So I ripped back out that heel because after reading over the pattern, I decided to add another 1.5 inches to the foot of the sock before I start the heel anyway. So I have to add 1.5 inches to the stripy socks, and then I'll start the heel. And I'm kind of thinking it depends on where I am in my life at the time I get that done, whether or not I'll go ahead and do what I fall back on my normal Fleagle heel, or if I'll try the short row heel. I debated about doing an afterthought heel, and I just decided I don't think that that's what I want to do. I have been tempted to do it because I have been wanting a mindless knit, and I could just knit, knit, knit and not worry about the heel, but I will still have to come back to it later and do it. So socks have not been touched. Another work in progress that you all have seen is the Piper's Journey. I want to say that I'm sorry, I don't know why my video it seems like if I move too fast or something, it's cutting off, and I apologize for that. But I want to say that I'm really enjoying this knit. This Piper's Journey was designed by Paula Emmons Beasley, and she is the hostess of the Knitting Pipeline podcast. It's an audio podcast. And a little digression to say, I am going to the Knitting Pipeline retreat, which is next Friday. Today is Thursday, so I'll be leaving next Friday, and I'm really excited about that. And I'll be excited to share with you all about the retreat. So I'm doing this out of Patton's Classic Wool, DK weight, superwash wool in the eggplant colorway, and I am using size 6 needles. And I love this knit. It's garter stitch until you get to a knitted on border. So you're kind of doing the border and casting off at the same time. I think last time I talked to you, I can't remember where I was. I'm not organized enough to put a little marker to show you where I am. But what happened was I got up to the number of stitches, and I won't say what number that was that Paula called for, and I wanted a slightly wider shawl. So she said that we should have 1/3 of the yarn left for the bind off. So what I did was I weighed my yarn, and I knit until I had half of the yarn left. So I knit until I had half of my yarn left, and I can't remember how much more, Paula, this is. I thought I had written it down, but I didn't, but I'm thinking it's only like 20, maybe just 20 stitches more than what she recommended. I'm not sure. But here's my lace border binding off. And it's going to continue to come down around here. And I still have all of this to do. It's really an enjoyable knit. It's an intuitive lace pattern. I have done a knitted on border before, and I think I mentioned this before, but I haven't done knitted on lace border. This is my first real lace besides feather and fan that I've done. It's very easy, and I just really, really love it. It takes a slight bit of concentration, meaning if there's a few people talking to me, I need to follow along in the pattern, but it's not hard at all. It's just, I love it. I really love it. It's a fun, satisfying knit. I'm going to block this aggressively because, as I said before, my only regret is maybe I should have used larger needles, because with this being a DK weight yarn, it feels more worsted than DK. It's way more dense than I thought it would be. So I'll just block that aggressively and hope that I get the effect that I was looking for. So that is the Piper's Journey. I will probably work on this at the knitting retreat. I think I'm a very, very shy person, and so this will be something to see for me to go to the retreat. But I will probably work on that, but I will probably need something that I really can't concentrate on. But I think it would be really nice to work on her project. You know, ideally, I wanted to have it done by the retreat, but I don't think I'll be able to have it done by the retreat. So that is that. My other work in progress, let's see. I am doing a test knit for Julianna Lund, who is Jules Lunder on Ravelry, and she is the hostess of the Equal Opportunity podcast. And I just think she is just, I don't know. I like her. I just think she is just such a sweetheart. So she always draws me in. And I was watching her knit this kimono on her podcast, and I thought, oh, when that goes to test knit, I really want to test knit. And if you remember, back this winter, I test knit the Somiar pullover that was by Julianna. So it's called the Amina kimono. And it is a lace it's a cables and lace. Let me get a good picture of it for you. It's a cable and lace kimono. Short sleeves. Let's see. This is a picture of the front. This is on Ravelry. It's not released. She's designing it for the Knit Picks Independent Designer Program. Right here, she has a belt with it. I really don't like the belt she has with it. But I may, I'm thinking about knitting or crocheting a belt to go with it. It all depends on how it looks after I'm done. So I am knitting this out of Valley Yarns Superwash DK in the black colorway. And I am using size 4 needles. And I forgot to tell you all that I was able to score some, this was a few months back, maybe 2.5 months back, some signature needles off of a Ravelry D-Stash. So I was excited to finally be able to use my signature needles. I'll show you first because there's not much to show yet. This is my swatch. I swatched for it. So this is the swatch. It is, without giving away the pattern, I don't think this is giving away the pattern. It's a 40-row lace pattern repeat. I am brand new to lace, and I did not realize. Looking at it, does not look as complicated. And now that I'm knitting it, it's not that complicated. But it's 24 stitch repeat. It's 24 stitches across and 40 rows up just for the pattern repeat. So basically, I have to look at the chart every row. So this is like, and it's on black yarn, so it's like in a quiet room, all by myself, nobody talk to me type of knitting, which I really don't have a lot of time for, and I am on a deadline for this. It has to be done by May 15th, so I hope I can get it done. I'm test knitting it in the free pattern test knitters group. So this is all I've gotten so far. 4 rows. It's not much to show you. I want to show you, if you haven't noticed before, everything that I show you has row markers on them, stitch markers on, or not stitch markers, but a row counter on them. I am the queen of row counters. I have to have a row counter. And so I have 2 row counters because I have a row counter to tell me, this one is going to tell me on what chart repeat I'm on, and this is going to tell me how many rows are in my entire garment. So after I get to 40 rows, I will start switching this one because I'll put this one back to number 1 when I start back to number 1 again, but it'll be row 41 of the garment, and I want to know how many rows I have so that my left and right front can match, if that makes any sense to you. And so I'm turning them both at the same time now so I can get used to it, so 40 rows later I won't have to try to remember to turn them both. But it's going pretty well. The stitches seem really bunched up on here. I'm wondering, and it's hard to move them across. I don't know if I cast on too tight, if I just need to put it on longer stitches or what, but they're not really sliding really easily. I did, which a cast on I hardly ever, like never do, which is the twisted loop cast on, because I had 240 stitches to cast on, and I did not want to pull out a long tail and not have enough or have too much left over. I thinking back now, I probably should have just did the cable, knitted on cable cast on. I wanted to stretchy cast on because it's going to be going around me. So I did that, and I'm wondering if I cast on too tight. It's really not sliding well for me. So I'm hoping when I get a little more weight on here, a few more rows on here, that it'll go more smoothly for me. Right now, it's not going real smoothly. I have stitch markers separating she recommends 4 stitch markers to separate the fronts and the back. And then I have stitch markers separating each pattern repeat. And I do count them periodically to make sure that I'm doing my yarn overs and SSKs in a way that I have 24 stitches in each repeat. So we'll see how this goes. I have less than a month to do it. My fingers have been itching to cast something else on because I'm at a point in everything that I'm knitting where I have to concentrate. A little bit of concentrating on Piper's Journey, a lot of concentrating on the Amina kimono. The socks, all of them are at the heels. The Hermione's everyday sock, like I said, I'm working on the second one, but even that, it's just a 4 row, a 4 round repeat, and but even that, in the situations that I have been in lately, even keeping track of that is more than what I can do sometimes. Sometimes when I just need something where I can knit. So I've been wanting to cast on something garter stitch. I really want to cast on a garter stitch shawl. I'm not a fan of just a plain triangular shawl. So I've been thinking about the Pagona. It's very popular. And then I looked over that pattern, and with all of the picking up and turning and things like that, I don't think that's going to fit my criteria. I got the color affection that I'm aspiring. I guess this is kind of aspirations. I'm going into aspirations. The color affection that I'm wanting to do, I heard that has some wrap and turns in it that I don't know. But I love the shape of it and the size of it. I may just pull that out. Thinking about doing that or the stripe study, which I really don't want to change colors on either one. I really don't want to do a striped shawl. So I don't know what I want to do. I would like to do maybe a crescent shawl. And I would like to do a shawl that I don't have to start off with 500 stitches, and I would like to do a shawl where I don't have to change colors. And I want to be able to have that so that I can pick it up in knitting and knit it without a lot of concentration. So what can I find to knit that's beautiful, that doesn't take a lot of concentration? If you have any suggestions, let me know. You know, I thought about doing dishcloths. I did promise one of my husband's co-workers that I would do lots and lots and lots of dishcloths for her for this summer for her to take to the flea market. So I thought maybe I could do that. Just not in the dishcloth mood yet. After Christmas time, I just feel like I want to do something a little more productive than dishcloth. So I'm not sure what I'm going to choose yet, but that's what I'm aspiring to. I have another aspiration. In Juliana's Equal Opportunity Crafter podcast group. If you have not watched that podcast, it's one of my faves. Watch it. She has a knit along going on called My BSF Knit Along. And we are knitting along with the My BFF Cowl, which is by Yasolda Teague and Stephanie Dosen, who I think she's 10 Can Knit. And this is a free pattern on Knitty. And we were awarded our partners on the 15th. And so my partner and I have decided to use Shine Worsted for our cowl. I think it calls for a wool, but with it being almost summertime, and she prefers to knit with cotton, and I'm fine with trying something new. So we are going to do that. And so I still have to order the yarn. So when the yarn comes, this is another project I'll have started. But this is the color Currant that we're going to use. And we're also going to use brown. And we're going to make it out of brown and currant. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So I am looking forward to doing this cowl. So that will be something else that I have on my needles. Let me see if I can get a better picture of it. What the cowl is she is Tiny Owl Knits. And what the cowl is you each knit 2 lengths of the cowl, and then you trade one. And so you each have a length of the cowl that your friend made, and then so you provisionally cast on, knit the cowl, and when you get them together, then you close them up, and you have the cowl made by yourself and your BFF. So it's gonna be a fun knit, and I'll probably start that after I place my knit picks order and get that back. Probably won't start that until after the retreat. And then it is due by the end of May. It's supposed to be mailed by May 30th. So I have enough going on. I have the kimono that is due by May 15th, and then I have the cowl that is due by May 30th. I think my little girl's dress will count towards our knit along. And so I really should not be thinking about casting on something else. But I have Startosis, as the Knitmore girls call it, and I just really feel like I just want to cast on something garter stitch. And I've been looking at different shawls, and I could do the Multnomah again, but like I was telling my friend Nicole, once I do the garter stitch part and you get to the pretty lacy border, then I'm going to put it aside just like I've done Piper's Journey or something else, and say, okay, I'm at a lacy part, I don't have time to concentrate on it, and I'll put it aside. So I need to find something that really, the yarn makes the pattern and the shaping makes the pattern without a lot of lace and different things like that, or knitting the lace at the same time. So that is that. I guess we can talk about what's on my iPod. And my iPod is fixed. And I am very, very happy because now that it's getting nice outside, I'm starting to walk again. And starting to walk again means I just started yesterday. And I'm enjoying having my iPod because it's smaller and more portable. I was carrying my iPad around with me everywhere and to listen to and watch my podcast, but now I can listen to them on my iPod. So what's on my iPod? I am listening to a non-knitting podcast, but I want to share it with you. It's called Cut the Fat Podcast, and it's hosted by Dr. Ray Heinisch and Blythe. I'm not sure what her last name is. I think she's a bodybuilder. And I find it very informative. I'm finding a lot of information about weight loss and healthy eating. They have a variety of very interesting topics, and they have like 60 or so episodes. So um, I'm enjoying listening to those, and actually I listen to those while I walk. So I'm really enjoying the Cut the Fat podcast. If you have not heard not heard about it, I would suggest check it out. It's on iTunes. Children are allowed again. Okay, I'm sorry. Another podcast that I'm listening to is the Fiber Hooligan podcast, and it is hosted by Benjamin Levasseur, and I think he owns Interweave Knits or one of the big knitting magazines, the one that hosts the Stitches events, which I'm hoping to go to in August, but that's another story. And he has like 4 or 5 episodes, and I'm just after listening to his interview with Debbie Macumber, it makes me want to go back and read all of her books or listen to all her books. And he had another interview with Marley Bird that I really, really liked. He had a very interesting interview, and I don't think I've finished that one yet. That's the one I'm listening to it now with some of the administrators from Ravelry, which has been very interesting. So it's called Fiber Hooligan, and it's on Blog Talk Radio, but you can access it through iTunes. I get it through my Downcast, and I would suggest checking that out. As far as video podcasts on my iPad, I've tried a new to me podcast called the Bunny Fish Podcast. She's not in Downcast or on iTunes, which this is not anything towards her, but it makes it harder for me to keep up with podcasts that are only on YouTube or only on the blog, because Downcast and iTunes kind of gives me the alert that there's a new episode, and I haven't really found out. I guess if you subscribe to their blog, it will come to my email, and maybe I can do it. But even then, things coming to my email, I kind of forget about it. So you can find her podcast at Bunnyfish, which is BUNNYPHISH.wordpress.com. She has about 23 episodes. She's a young girl, and it's a nice podcast. I think she's really sweet, and I would encourage you all to go give her a try and give her a listen to. She's very sweet. Another podcast that I am watching, that I'm probably the last person on the planet to start watching, but it is the Fat Squirrel Speaks, and it's hosted by Amy Beth. And I have not watched it in the past. I tried to start watching it when she first came out, and the sound wasn't really good. And so I really wasn't able, I just didn't keep up with it because I couldn't really hear her. But she's got new equipment. I can hear her very well. You know, a lot of people talk about her, and I think there's 2 things that made me go start to look her up again. Number one, she's going to be at the retreat. So I kind of wanted to see her and get to know her a little bit through her podcast. And number 2, when I hear other people talk about her, they always talk about something they've learned from her or just something she said or shared. And so I thought, well, I want to listen to this. So she does. In her conversations about her knitting and her works in progress, she shares tips and techniques without really saying she's sharing a tip and technique. But she's a very knowledgeable, experienced knitter, and I enjoy listening to her share her projects. So if that Squirrel Speak, she's on Blip and iTunes and all of that. And that's Amy Beth. And I believe she's a Fat Squirrel on Ravelry. And I can't think of the young lady's name that hosts the Bunnyfish podcast, but she is Bunnyfish on Ravelry also. So for our wow, which I haven't done wow in a long time, and I don't know, I need to do show notes for at least myself so I can remember what I talked to you about. But I like to say I love the Craft Speak classes. No affiliation, don't get any money, no sponsorship or anything, but I really, really like them. I've learned a lot from them. I have a lot in my queue, and just watching them at your leisure, they're very chock full of good information. Right now, I am taking, and I think I did mention this, Amy Herzog's Knit to Flatter. I've been watching that, and I really, really enjoy it. And all of the classes that, whatever interests you, that you can get and work through, excellent learning material. Craftsy, excellent learning material. So that's my wow. As far as a weight loss tip, I feel like last time I talked to you, I told you I'd been stuck in the rut of weighing myself every day, and I was going to try to stop doing it. I haven't stopped doing it yet. But some things I've learned, and I wish I had, because I just don't like weighing myself every day. Been stuck in the rut of gaining and losing the same couple of pounds, and it's been really discouraging. And I told you I started Weight Watchers again, and I talked to my leader, and I said, what am I doing? I'm eating my points and staying within my points, but I'm not losing. And she said, well, how much protein are you getting? And I don't really eat a lot of meat. I eat a lot of vegetables. And I said, I don't eat a lot of protein. And I don't eat a lot of dairy. She said, protein and dairy, you need some protein and dairy to somehow help with your weight loss. So I had been eating more of a vegan or vegetarian type diet, where I was getting a lot of fruits and vegetables in, but not a lot of vegetable protein. And that's because I'm starting and not really knowing how to get the vegetable protein, which a lot of the vegetable protein you get, sources you get, has a lot of fat in it, and I really didn't want to do that. So my tip is, not saying that you can't be a vegetarian or vegan and lose weight, but my tip is to get protein in. I've started adding protein powder to my green smoothies, and I have seen a change in my weight loss by adding more protein and dairy into my diet. So that would be a tip. I also can see how my weight loss fluctuates, and I lose more weight the days that I drink more water. And I think I've always talked about water. So those are my weight loss tips. I was trying to hurry and get show notes together, and I really don't have an ASL. I didn't have anything for ASL in mind to share with you. I guess I can talk about, if just thinking off of, I can't think of anything. To share with you as far as an ASL. So there won't be an ASL tip. And I did not think about what to talk about for knitting circle either. The girls are at school, and I'm usually at school teaching, but we're doing Stanford testing. And so all of the teachers were not needed, and that's why the boys are home and noisy, and the girls are at school. When Journey comes home to edit, I will have this podcast up, and they really have not done a lot of any knitting. So they don't have any knitting to share. But they are wanting to start on knitting. They just said that they've lost interest in knitting and podcasting for a while. And as teenagers go, I know their interests fluctuate. I would like to see them to go ahead and continue to knit or crochet and do something productive, more productive besides the video games or the computer games that they like to play, but it hasn't gone that way. So I want to thank you for joining me. I guess if I was just to think about our knitting circle, I wonder if those all of you ever get into a rut where you have all these projects on the needles, but you feel like you don't have anything to knit. I have a lot to knit. I love everything that I'm knitting, but I still feel like I just need something. I don't know. I'm itching. Even after I get done with this, I might go upstairs and dig through my stash and start something. So thank you for joining me. I will see you around the 1st of May, and I will be able to share with you about the Knitting Pipeline Retreat. I will do our drawing for our share thread, and I'm ashamed to say that I don't remember what our share thread is. It's for March and April, and if you share in the thread, you will be eligible for a $7 giftable pattern. And I will draw for that winner on my first podcast in March. And our March-April share question is, your spring knitting. How could I forget? Do you knit different items in spring than you do in fall and winter? Do you use different yarns? How does the change in season affect your knitting? So we have 16 posts, very, very interesting posts. And so come on over there and share with us and join in for the prize drawing. And that goes until the end of April. I will probably, I usually don't lock the threads, because if you're new to the podcast group and if you go through the Ravelry, if you're a member of Ravelry and if you go through and you want to share something that we've already talked about, please feel free to do that. Also, for the Array of Sugar and Spice Cow, if you're watching this on the blog and you're not a member of Ravelry and you want to still participate, you can email me a picture of your finished object, and I can put that in a thread and you can be entered to win. So I don't want to ramble on. I'm sorry I'm not more prepared with the ASL tip or to have something to talk about for Knitting Circle, but I think I've talked enough. And I've enjoyed the time with you, and I hope you enjoyed the time with me, and I will talk to you later. Take care.
I feel I should just slam it down on the table and walk away madly, 'cause my stitches don't count up and I missed a cable. This yarn's not the size that it says on the label. Now I can't find which repeat I am on. I think I should have a sip.